There were moments in World War II where horror exceeded any imaginable limit. These were not battles or confrontations, but acts of extreme violence where thousands of people were murdered without warning, without possibility of escape, and without comprehensible reason. Bodies thrown into ditches, entire villages turned to ashes, victims reduced to numbers before disappearing completely. In different points of Europe, the war transformed into something more than a struggle for power. It became a scenario of collective punishments, blind reprisals, and unleashed sadism. Age, condition, or innocence did not matter. It was enough to be in the wrong place to die in the cruelest way. What were the darkest moments of Nazi terror? Where was the line crossed between war and absolute extermination? Where was the true terror that defined the Third Reich experienced? Babi Yar, the ravine where death came without warning. Kiev fell on September 26, 1941, after weeks of Soviet resistance. The original Jewish population of 200,000 inhabitants had been reduced to about 50,000, mainly elderly, women and children, who had not managed to evacuate before the German siege. 2 days before the massacre, coordinated explosions devastated the city center. The Continental Hotel, converted into German headquarters, was blown up along with other strategic buildings. The charges had been placed by NKVD agents before the Soviet retreat. Hundreds of German soldiers died crushed among the rubble. The response was immediate. General Kurt Eberhard, Friedrich Jeckeln, and Otto Rasch from Einsatzgruppe C met that same night. The decision: completely eliminate Kiev's Jewish community as reprisal. Paul Blobel from Sonderkommando 4A would receive the task of executing the operation. Babi Yar, the ravine chosen for the massacre, extended 2.5 kilometers northeast of the city. Its walls, up to 50 meters deep, had served as Jewish cemetery and municipal dump. The irregular and isolated terrain made it the perfect scenario to hide thousands of corpses. On September 28th, posters appeared throughout Kiev. Text in Russian, Ukrainian, and German ordered all Jews to present themselves on September 29th at 8 a.m. at the corner of Melnikova and Doktorivskaya. They should bring documents, money, jewelry, warm clothing, and provisions. Any absentee would be shot. Any civilian who looted abandoned properties would also be executed. 30,000 people obeyed. Entire families walked toward the meeting point carrying suitcases and bags, convinced they faced deportation toward some eastern territory. Small children asked their parents when they would return home. The columns of Jews were escorted from the meeting point to the surroundings of the ravine. German soldiers and Ukrainian auxiliary police formed human corridors that directed the flow of victims towards stripping stations, organized with military precision. The first station required the surrender of all valuable objects. Money, jewelry, watches, and documents were immediately classified by specialized soldiers. The second station forced complete removal of clothes, which were separated by type and quality for later reuse. The naked bodies advanced toward the third and final station, the edge of the ravine. There, groups of 10 to 15 people were forced to kneel over the corpses of previous executions. Individual shots to the neck brought down each victim directly to the bottom of the abyss. The rhythm was constant, one death every few seconds for uninterrupted hours. Blobel had organized rotating teams of shooters to maintain efficiency without exhausting the executioners. Each soldier shot during timed shifts before being relieved. This industrial system of death allowed processing thousands of victims without significant interruptions. As the first day advanced, panic spread among those still waiting. The constant shots and screams revealed the true nature of the operation. Some tried to flee but were shot down by guards positioned throughout the perimeter. Others were paralyzed by terror and were physically dragged to the execution site. The Ereignismeldung UdSSR 106 official report, dated October 7, 1941, records exactly 33,771 Jews executed between September 29th and 30. This figure, later verified at Nuremberg, documents the lethal speed achieved by the Nazi extermination apparatus. For 48 hours, the shots did not cease. Night shifts continued, eliminating stragglers and fugitives captured in tracking operations through the city. The temporal precision of the operation met the deadlines established by Blobel without delays. The ravine was transformed into a stratified mass grave, 7 levels of bodies compressed under their own weight, with initial victims crushed to unrecognizability. Blood soaked the surrounding terrain, while discarded clothes and abandoned belongings covered an area of several square kilometers. Quicklime and removed earth initially covered the remains, but the volume of corpses exceeded concealment forecasts. Weeks later, extremities emerged from the ground, forcing additional burial work that extended until November. Babi Yar continued functioning as execution center during the entire occupation. Soviet prisoners of war, gypsies, partisans and civilians accused of resistance swelled the ditches. Between 100,000 and 150,000 people died in the ravine over 2 years. In 1943, facing Soviet advance, Blobel returned to direct Sonderkommando 1005, exhume and burn all corpses. Prisoners of war and surviving Jews performed this work before being executed to eliminate witnesses. Giant pyres burned for weeks, but the work of erasing evidence remained incomplete. The Red Army liberated Kiev in November 1943. Soviet investigators found thousands of bone fragments, German projectiles, textile remains, and testimonies from civilians who had witnessed the operations from a distance. The Extraordinary State Committee meticulously documented the findings for future prosecutions. German aerial photographs captured in Berlin showed troop movement toward Babi Yar, terrain alterations from massive excavations and subsequent camouflage work. This visual material complemented documentary evidence to reconstruct each phase of the operation. Blobel confessed during the Einsatzgruppen trials, 1947 to 1948, that the executions followed established schedules and that the operation had been designed to be completed in exactly 48 hours. His testimony confirmed the premeditated and systematic nature of the fastest massacre of the Holocaust. The Sobibor Rebellion, blood in the trenches of extermination. March 1942. Sobibor emerges from the forests of eastern Poland as part of Operation Reinhard, the plan to exterminate all Jews of the general government. Its remote location, near the village of the same name, makes it the perfect place for discreet mass murder. The camp processes between 1,000 and 2,000 victims daily through gas chambers fed by gasoline engines that produce carbon monoxide. By October 1943, approximately 250,000 Jews have been eliminated in this death machine built with German efficiency. 600 Jewish prisoners maintain operations as Arbeitsjuden. They classify belongings, repair infrastructure, work in specialized workshops. They know their usefulness is temporary. Regular rotations eliminate veterans and select new workers from incoming transports. This constant renewal prevents formation of bonds or resistance plans. September brings significant changes. A transport from the Eastern Front unloads Soviet Jewish prisoners of war, including Officer Alexander Pechersky. Unlike the terrorized civilians who form the majority of workers, these soldiers possess military training and combat experience. Leon Feldhendler, informal leader among Polish prisoners, immediately recognizes the possibilities. He has been organizing clandestine resistance for months, but lacks tactical knowledge for a successful operation. Pechersky's arrival completely changes prospects. The alliance between the Polish Jew and Soviet officer generates a bold plan: silently assassinate German and Ukrainian guards during normal work hours, capture the arsenal, lead a mass escape. The strategy exploits predictable routines of Nazi officers who regularly visit workshops to inspect work and collect manufactured objects. Weeks of observation identify patterns, schedules, vulnerable points. Improvised weapons are manufactured in workshops: sharpened axes, long knives, reinforced clubs. Communication codes allow coordination without alerting camp administration. October 14, 1943 marks the chosen day. Conditions seem optimal. Normal routines, absence of special events, guards relaxed by apparent docility of prisoners after months of systematic terror. 15:30 hours. SS Untersturmführer Johann Niemann enters the tailoring workshop to try on a new uniform. Pechersky and 2 conspirators attack him with axes. Instant death. The body disappears under piles of confiscated clothing. 15:45 hours. Rudolf Beckmann goes to the warehouse to inspect a leather coat. Knives end his life while he reviews the merchandise. His corpse is hidden among classified belongings. 1600 hours. Josef Wallister falls in the Lager 2 classification area. 16:15 hours. Erwin Stengelin dies in the shoe shop. The murders continue with chronometric precision, eliminating officers one after another without generating alarms. By 1630, 11 Germans and Ukrainians have been executed. The plan works perfectly until a guard prematurely discovers one of the bodies. The alarm spreads instantly throughout the entire camp. Pechersky understands that the element of surprise has been lost. He activates the emergency phase, immediate general escape. 1700 hours. Hundreds of prisoners run simultaneously toward perimeter fences. Machine guns in watchtowers open massive fire, but numbers exceed response capacity. Stolen tools cut wire fencing. Boards and blankets create bridges over electrified fences. Axes and bars break main gates. 300 prisoners manage to cross the initial perimeter toward the surrounding forest. The outer minefield takes its brutal toll. Constant explosions eliminate fugitives while they run toward trees. Many die stepping on mines before reaching forest cover. Survivors disperse in multiple directions. Massive search and capture operations are activated immediately. German soldiers, Ukrainian auxiliary police, Polish civilian collaborators track fugitives for weeks. Tempting rewards stimulate betrayals. Local treacheries multiply recaptures. 170 escaped prisoners are executed after being found. Others die of hunger, cold, diseases in the forests. In the end, barely 50 survive until armistice. The price of the only successful revolt in a pure extermination camp is devastating. Himmler orders immediate and permanent closure of Sobibor upon receiving reports of the incident. The 150 prisoners who remained in the camp are shot during the following 24 hours. All buildings are systematically demolished. November 1943. Operation Reinhard officially ends barely a month after the revolt. Although official allegations claim genocidal objectives were fulfilled, internal documents suggest that Sobibor and growing resistance in other camps influenced the decision to close mass extermination facilities. January 1944, no visible evidence of Sobibor remains. The area has been converted into agricultural farm, worked by a German family instructed to deny knowledge about previous uses of the terrain. Complete transformation is possible because Sobibor was designed as temporary facility for rapid extermination and elimination of evidence. Franz Stangl, commander transferred to Treblinka before the revolt, testifies years later that the incident exposed fundamental vulnerabilities in security systems considered infallible. Gustav Wagner, officer fled to Brazil, confirms decades later that the revolt demonstrated unsuspected organizational capabilities among apparently broken prisoners. The few survivors provide detailed testimonies about planning and execution. Their accounts confirm that weeks of careful preparation and Pechersky's military experience were decisive elements for the initial success of the most audacious operation ever attempted against the Nazi extermination apparatus. The Night of the Ovens, the Sonderkommando of Auschwitz. Auschwitz-Birkenau, October 1944. 450 Jewish prisoners integrate the Sonderkommando, special unit forced to operate the industrial machinery of death of the Reich. Their existence represents the maximum perversion of the Nazi system, forcing victims to participate in their own destruction. These men perform each stage of the extermination process. They receive transports, maintain the illusion of disinfection showers, extract corpses from gas chambers, recover gold teeth, cut female hair, transport bodies to crematoriums, clean facilities between mass executions. Their work sustains continuous functioning of the largest extermination center of the Holocaust. Periodic rotations eliminate veteran witnesses and select new workers from incoming transports. This renewal prevents lasting bonds and maintains constant terror. Each Sonderkommando member knows his survival is temporary, limited by the usefulness he represents for maintaining genocidal operations. Persistent rumors circulate during summer about plans to liquidate the entire Sonderkommando. September intensifies these rumors when massive transports of Hungarian Jews saturate facilities. Once these last important groups were processed, Sonderkommando usefulness would decrease drastically. Clandestine contacts with resistance in other areas of the complex generate an ambitious plan. Simultaneous revolt in the 4 crematoriums, destruction of extermination facilities, mass escape of prisoners. Coordination requires explosives that can only be obtained through collaboration with workers from the munitions factory. 4 Jewish women in Unionwerke factory located in Auschwitz III initiate extremely dangerous smuggling operations. Rosa Robota, Alla Gertner, Regina Saphirstein, and Esther Weichblum steal gunpowder for months, hiding it in clothes, shoes, hair. Meticulous searches at end of shifts convert each transfer into mortal risk. Internal networks transport explosive material through laundry, storage barracks, crematorium basements. Maintenance experience allows Sonderkommando to convert gunpowder into improvised detonating devices mixed with flammable materials available in facilities. Perfect coordination between all crematoriums requires synchronization during afternoon shifts when greater number of workers is present. Explosives would destroy ovens and gas chambers, while improvised weapons would eliminate guards. The plan promises to permanently disable the most efficient genocidal facilities of the Reich. October 7th morning, German selection of 300 Sonderkommando members for transfer to another camp. Transfer means disguised mass execution. Faced with immediate death, Crematorium 4 workers decide to initiate revolt without waiting for coordination with other crematoriums. 13:30 hours. Attacks with hammers, axes, tools against SS guards. Simultaneous detonation of explosive charge near entrance causes significant structural damage. Fire spreads through wooden roof, collapsing building sections. Josef Schillinger and Wilhelm Emmerich, first Germans attacked, die beaten by groups of prisoners using work tools. Violence of these initial attacks reflects years of accumulated anger under conditions of genocidal slavery. Flames and smoke from Crematorium 4 immediately alert entire Birkenau administration. General alarms mobilize all available guard units. MG-42 machine guns deploy around crematorium, opening indiscriminate fire against any movement. 80 prisoners manage to escape from crematorium during initial confusion. Pliers cut sections of electrified wire fencing, creating openings toward exterior areas. However, German response is rapid and massive. Attack dogs trained specifically to track fugitives are released immediately. Battles inside Crematorium 4 continue for hours. Prisoners use intimate knowledge of structure to create barricades and defensive positions. They fight with tools, metal pipes, stones, remaining explosives against German soldiers reinforced from nearby combat units. German grenades attack prisoner positions while specialized teams systematically eliminate remaining resistance. By 1700 hours, all direct participants have been eliminated. Crematorium 4 suffers such extensive damage that it remains permanently unusable. Other crematoriums attempt to join revolt belatedly, but uncoordinated efforts fail rapidly. Crematorium 2, small group attacks guards before being overpowered. Crematoriums 3 and 5, prisoners are immobilized before acting. Lack of synchronization condemns support attempts. 80 fugitives face systematic searches during following 48 hours. Soldiers, dogs, civilian collaborators track hideouts in forests, abandoned farms, industrial structures. Recaptures are almost universal. Summary executions eliminate those who are found. German reprisals are brutal and immediate. October 8th to 9th, 355 Sonderkommando members are executed in area behind Crematorium 2. Completely naked, they are shot by SS firing squads as collective punishment for revolt. Investigations under torture identify explosive smuggling network. Maximilian Grabner, Gestapo chief of Auschwitz, personally interrogates the 4 women for weeks. Systematic tortures seek additional names, but women refuse to provide information that would compromise other prisoners. January 6, 1945. 3 weeks before liberation by Red Army, Rosa Robota, Alla Gertner, Regina Saphirstein, and Esther Weichblum are publicly hanged. Execution before hundreds of prisoners serves as final warning against resistance. The women die singing patriotic songs. Karl Höcker, personal assistant to Commander Richard Baer, officially documents revolt as critical security failure. His report recommends fundamental changes in procedures for all camps, stricter surveillance, rigorous controls over potentially dangerous materials. Allied aerial photographs weeks later clearly show damage to Crematorium 4. Roof completely collapsed, walls with extensive damage from fire and explosions. Structure was never repaired, remaining as ruin until camp liberation. Post-war interrogations of SS officers reveal significant shock in camp administration. Many considered Sonderkommando completely docile due to their forced participation in extermination. Demonstrated organizational capability forced reconsideration of assumptions about prisoner psychology under extreme conditions. Franz Hössler testifies during Auschwitz trials that revolt demonstrated organized resistance capabilities even under most degrading conditions. Hans Munch confirms that improvised explosives were sufficiently powerful to cause permanent structural damage. Sonderkommando survivors provide detailed testimonies about planning and motivations. They confirm that operation was motivated primarily by knowledge of imminent execution once their usefulness for German administration was completed. The revolt represents a unique moment where victims of genocidal apparatus managed to cause significant damage to death machinery. Although majority of participants were executed, their action permanently reduced Auschwitz extermination capacity during last months of operation. Lebensborn, the secret project to create a superior race. December 12, 1935, Heinrich Himmler signs the order that officially establishes the Lebensborn program, experiment in social engineering designed to accelerate reproduction of racially superior elements while eliminating populations considered undesirable. Source of life, literal translation of the name, reflects ambitions to create a spring of genetically perfect beings to populate the future German Empire. The main office of race and resettlement supervises operations through elaborate criteria that transcend observable physical characteristics. Family genealogies must be traced 4 generations to demonstrate absence of Jewish, Slavic, or inferior race blood. Evaluations include not only cranial morphology and facial structure, but also ideological attitudes and commitment to National Socialist principles. Steinhöring, near Munich, houses the first facility in 1936. Heim-Hochland serves as model for all posterior houses, first-class medical facilities, luxurious accommodations for mothers, personnel completely indoctrinated in Nazi racial ideology. The house marks the beginning of controlled human reproduction on industrial scale. Female selection processes are rigorous and dehumanizing. Candidates endure exhaustive medical examinations, including detailed anthropometric measurements of cranial, facial, bodily characteristics. Fertility tests, complete family medical histories, psychological evaluations seek to ensure offspring free of diseases or disabilities that compromise racial purity. Fathers are typically SS officers or party members evaluated according to identical racial criteria, but also considering military rank, political achievements, potential to contribute to future Reich elite. Pairings are based on genetic and anthropometric analyses to maximize characteristics considered desirable in offspring. Sexual relations within the program are viewed purely in terms of eugenic production, without consideration for emotional bonds between participants. Pregnancies receive intensive medical attention and prenatal care of maximum quality available to ensure successful births under optimal health conditions. Children born in Lebensborn facilities are considered state property from birth. Names are changed to appropriate German versions, birth certificates altered to eliminate references to real biological origins. Intensive education in Nazi ideology from infancy destines them to form future ruling class of the Thousand-Year Reich. Between 1936 and 1945, approximately 8,000 children are born in German houses, 12,000 additional in Norway during occupation. Meticulous records document each birth. Photographs, anthropometric measurements, evaluations of racial characteristics. Nazi administration maintains detailed files of each case. 1940 marks expansion of program toward its most sinister aspect, systematic kidnapping of children from occupied territories. Himmler's directives order subtraction of any child with Nordic characteristics for forced Germanization. Operations begin in Poland, extending subsequently to Ukraine, Belarus, Slovakia. Selection criteria for kidnapping include blonde hair, blue eyes, Nordic facial structure, body proportions that meet Nazi anthropometric standards. Officers specialized in racial evaluation perform systematic inspections in schools, orphanages, communities to identify appropriate candidates. Kidnappings involve violent separation during raids that frequently include arrest or execution of parents. Selected children are transported to processing centers for detailed racial evaluations and initiation of forced Germanization, complete elimination of original cultural identity. Germanization requires change of names to German versions, prohibition of native languages, intensive ideological indoctrination designed to replace memory or connection with origins. Children who resist or maintain original identity are sent to concentration camps. Poland suffers particularly systematic and extensive operations. Between 20,000 and 200,000 Polish children are kidnapped during 5 years of occupation. Operations initially concentrate in urban areas to identify large numbers, subsequently expanding to rural zones. Institute of Hereditary Biology in Breslau processes kidnapped children from Eastern Europe. Detailed archives include frontal and profile photographs, complete anthropometric measurements, psychological evaluations, records of progress in Germanization. Each child receives file number and careful monitoring by specialized personnel. German families who receive kidnapped children typically hear false stories about origins, orphans of dead soldiers rescued from deplorable conditions in occupied territories. Deliberate disinformation ensures adoptive families do not question real origins, facilitating assimilation. Expansion to Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, Soviet Union follows identical patterns. Identification based on racial criteria, violent separation from families, processing in specialized centers, final placement in German families. Each operation maintains same systematic bureaucratic methodology. May 1945. Allied forces capture central archives with more than 300,000 individual files documenting participation in program. Documents include birth records, adoptions, correspondence between officers, racial evaluation reports, financial documentation about operational costs. Norway preserves Lebensborn records almost completely intact. Between 1945 and 1947, cross-analyses between birth lists and medical files reveal that program operated with particular intensity during occupation. 9 houses established in Norwegian territory implemented aggressive policies to foster reproductive relationships between German soldiers and Norwegian women considered racially appropriate. Austria reveals facilities still active weeks after armistice, with children pending transfer. Captured documentation includes detailed instructions signed directly by Himmler about acceleration of child Germanization process. Lebensborn program represents ambitious experiment in demographic engineering designed not only to eliminate undesirable populations but actively create new superior race to dominate Europe under German hegemony. Combination of racial pseudoscience with bureaucratic efficiency treats human beings as reproductive livestock in controlled production system. Plans included massive expansion after German victory, with facilities established throughout occupied Europe to accelerate population replacement. Failure to produce promised results revealed fundamental flaws in pseudoscientific theories, but damage caused extended far beyond ideological failures. Tens of thousands of families destroyed by child kidnapping, cultural identities permanently lost, family connections cut forever created persistent personal tragedies for decades. Majority of kidnapped children were never reunited with biological families, perpetuating program consequences long after Reich collapse. Oradour-sur-Glane, the French village annihilated in 3 hours. June 10, 1944. 4 days after Normandy landing, Oradour-sur-Glane awakens like any morning during occupation. This village of Haute-Vienne houses approximately 650 permanent residents, but population has increased considerably by refugees from other regions and children evacuated from bombed cities. The 2nd SS Panzer Division Das Reich advances northward from Toulouse with orders to reinforce defenses against Allied invasion. During its journey, it has performed multiple reprisals against French resistance, including massacre of 99 civilians in Toul the previous day, where men were publicly hanged in reprisal for partisan attacks. Das Reich possesses sinister reputation even within Nazi military apparatus. Formed from original militarized SS units, it participated in brutal atrocities in Yugoslavia and Soviet Union. Officers and soldiers have been indoctrinated in total war that characterizes operations in occupied territories. Adolf Diekmann commands 1st Battalion of Der Führer Regiment, unit responsible for what will follow. He has received erroneous reports about use of village as partisan base and retention of German officer as prisoner. Based on this false information, he decides to perform punishment operation against entire population. 1400 hours. Column of armored vehicles enters from main road, several SDKFZ. 251 half-tracks, reconnaissance vehicles, trucks transporting 200 SS soldiers. Vehicles take strategic positions, blocking all escape routes while soldiers go through village knocking on doors. Portable loudspeakers announce mandatory meeting in Central Square for identity document verification. Soldiers maintain facade of routine administrative procedure during first stages, which keeps population calm and cooperative. Families obediently head to meeting point with their documents. Once all residents are gathered, separation begins that will reveal true German intentions. Men and boys older than 14 are separated from women and younger children. Explanations about individual interrogations for men while women wait in church maintain illusion of normal procedure. 190 men are distributed in 6 locations: barns, stables, agricultural buildings capable of containing large groups. Simultaneously, 247 women and 205 children are escorted to 15th century parish church. Soldiers claim they will be more comfortable waiting in religious building. 1600 hours. Light machine guns MG-34 are placed in positions that allow shooting through doors and windows of 6 buildings containing men. Simultaneous initiation of executions, first shots to legs and torsos to bring down and incapacitate victims, then individual shots to head to ensure death. Incendiary materials carefully prepared spray bodies with gasoline before setting them on fire. Buildings are completely burned to destroy evidence and ensure any survivor dies in flames. Black smoke rises from multiple points around village. Simultaneously, large metal box is placed near church altar containing incendiary mixture, gasoline, explosives, chemicals that will generate dense toxic smoke. 1630 hours, device detonation breaks windows, fills interior with deadly black smoke. Panic spreads immediately among women and children who understand they are being deliberately murdered. Desperate escape attempts through doors and windows face machine guns positioned around building. Soldiers have completely surrounded church to eliminate any possibility of flight. Interior conditions become rapidly unbearable. Toxic smoke causes massive asphyxiation, while fire spreads through wooden benches and flammable materials. Victims who do not die from asphyxiation or shots are burned alive when flames consume entire interior. Marguerite Roufanche manages to escape during initial chaos, reaching high window behind altar. She jumps outside, is wounded by German shots, but manages to crawl to hide behind building before escaping to wooded areas. Her testimony will later provide detailed evidence about events inside church. While executions develop, other soldiers systematically loot all buildings before burning them. Stores, houses, post office, school are emptied of valuable objects and then destroyed with portable flamethrowers and incendiary materials. Destruction is total and systematic. Village infrastructure is also eliminated: telephone lines, water system, access roads. Objective is to completely erase any evidence that village existed and ensure it cannot be rapidly reconstructed. Cattle and domestic animals are massacred, vehicles burned or confiscated. 1700 hours. 3 hours after beginning, all resistance has ceased and destruction is complete. Total of 643 civilians murdered, 190 men, 247 women, 206 children. Among victims are 19 Spanish refugees who had fled after Spanish Civil War. German column regroups and continues march northward. Diekmann reports operation as successful counter-partisan action that eliminated important French resistance base. However, no evidence of partisan activity in Oradour is ever found, confirming that motivating information was completely erroneous. Local French authorities are informed by refugees who observed smoke and flames from nearby villages. German security perimeter prevents immediate investigation. When first authorities arrive next day, they encounter total destruction that exceeds anything seen during war. Scene of smoking ruins with charred bodies scattered among destroyed building debris requires days of work to recover and identify remains. Extreme difficulty due to state of completely carbonized bodies, but they managed to confirm 643 victims through recoverable fragments. Physical evidence collected includes German bullet casings, grenade fragments, remains of incendiary materials that provide details about methods used. Careful documentation of state of destroyed buildings creates complete record for future legal prosecutions. French provisional government under Charles de Gaulle decides to preserve ruins exactly as they remained after attack. Decision motivated by desire to create permanent memorial and provide tangible evidence of German war crimes for future tribunals. Preservation requires considerable work to stabilize damaged structures and prevent deterioration from exposure. Protective roofs are installed over most significant ruins. Paths are constructed to allow visits without altering crime scene. Massacre has significant impact on French and international public opinion about nature of German occupation. Photographs of ruins and survivor testimonies are widely published in Allied press, providing graphic evidence of systematic brutality against innocent civilians. Diekmann dies in combat in Normandy 3 weeks later, depriving Allied authorities of opportunity to prosecute him. His death eliminates principal responsible party, although documents found confirm his role in planning and execution. Other Das Reich officers are subsequently identified as participants, but many escape prosecution due to destruction of military records and unit dispersion at war's end. Some are prosecuted by French tribunals, but sentences are considered inadequate. Heinz Lammerding, division commander during massacre, is condemned to death in absentia by French military tribunal in 1953. However, he avoids extradition from West Germany and dies in 1971 without facing justice for his role in atrocity. Related trials reveal systematic and premeditated nature of massacre. Documents presented show operation was carefully planned, with specific responsibilities assigned to different units for executions, fires, evidence destruction. Testimonies from captured German soldiers provide details about massacre execution. Several admit having received specific orders to leave no survivors and completely destroy village. Some express surprise that operation was directed against innocent civilians. Fact that some participating soldiers were Alsatian recruits forced to serve in SS creates lasting tensions between Alsace and other French regions that persist for post-war decades. Subsequent forensic investigations provide detailed information about specific methods used. Medical examinations of human remains determine many victims died from shots before being burned, while others were murdered by asphyxiation or burned alive. Analysis of incendiary materials used in church reveals Germans used sophisticated mixture of chemicals designed specifically to generate dense toxic smoke and intense flames. Evidence demonstrates massacre was planned in advance, and Germans brought specialized equipment specifically for operation. Preservation of Oradour as memorial becomes important symbol of French resistance and war memory. Site attracts hundreds of thousands of visitors during subsequent decades, including international political leaders, military veterans, students learning about consequences of total war. Case establishes important legal precedents for prosecution of war crimes involving civilian murder. French tribunals develop doctrines about command responsibility and collective culpability that influence subsequent prosecutions in subsequent conflicts. Failed conspiracy, Hitler's tribunal converted into horror spectacle. July 20th, 1944, 12:42 p.m. Klaus von Stauffenberg's bomb explodes in Rastenburg, killing 4 people but failing its main objective. Hitler survives with minor injuries. This failure unleashes massive repression that will reveal sadistic nature of Nazi security apparatus. Hours after attempt, first arrests begin in Berlin. Stauffenberg and main conspirators are captured in war ministry when their coup collapses. Friedrich Fromm, seeking to save his life after knowing about conspiracy, orders immediate execution of 4 leaders. Midnight of July 21st, improvised firing squad executes Stauffenberg, Friedrich Olbricht, Albrecht Merz von Quernheim, Werner von Haeften in Ministry Courtyard under lantern illumination. These standard military executions contrast markedly with horrors that will follow for other participants. Hitler decides that rapid executions are inadequate for magnitude of treason faced. He orders live capture of all other conspirators for judicial proceedings that allow public humiliation before executing them in most degrading way possible. Gestapo, under Heinrich Müller, launches massive arrest operation involving more than 7,000 suspects connected with conspiracy. Investigators use brutal interrogation techniques, systematic physical torture, sleep deprivation, exposure to extreme temperatures, psychological techniques to break mental resistance. Torture methods include prolonged beatings, interrogation sessions of entire days without interruptions for rest or food. Many arrested are subjected to tortures designed to extract information about other participants and build legal cases against prisoners. Hitler personally specifies that main conspirators be publicly tried under conditions that maximize humiliation. Trials are assigned to Volksgerichtshof, presided over by Roland Freisler, fanatic judge known for absolute loyalty to regime and willingness to act as propagandist rather than impartial magistrate. Freisler developed judicial style characterized by constant shouting, aggressive interruptions, personal insults directed at anyone appearing before his tribunal. Hitler specifically chose Freisler because he would convert proceedings into degradation spectacles serving regime's propagandistic purposes. August 7, 1944. First trials begin in Great Hall of Berlin Court of Appeals. Accused include most prominent conspirators: Erwin von Witzleben, Erich Höppner, Helmuth Stief, Paul von Heyse, several minor officers who participated in conspiracy. Deliberate humiliations break accused dignity before judicial proceedings. Prisoners forced to appear without belts, suspenders, ties, forcing them to constantly hold up pants. Also, denial of dentures and glasses creates physical appearances photographed and filmed for propaganda. Cell conditions designed to maximize physical discomfort and psychological degradation. Prisoners kept in small, cold spaces without heating, furniture, appropriate sanitary facilities, minimal food of poor quality, denial of reading or writing materials. During trials, Freisler implements procedures to prevent accused from presenting coherent defense. He constantly interrupts attempts to explain motivations, shouts insults when they try to speak, structures procedures to ensure only accusation voices are clearly heard. Defense lawyers had been instructed not to provide real defense. In many cases, they actively participate in accused humiliation, making statements that support accusations instead of defending supposed clients. Complete corruption of legal process ensures predetermined results. Judicial proceedings are filmed by camera teams that emphasize accused humiliation moments and Freisler's most vehement statements against conspirators. Filmings focus particularly on prisoner degradation for subsequent propagandistic use. August 8th. Verdicts announced barely 1 day after beginning, all accused condemned to death as had been predetermined. However, Hitler ordered executions use methods specifically designed to maximize condemned suffering and degradation. Plötzensee prison in Berlin prepares special facilities to implement execution methods ordered by Hitler. Instead of standard military firing squads or traditional decapitations for traitors, Hitler specifies slow hanging using methods that prolong agony. Executioners install butcher hooks on ceiling beams from which condemned will be hung using piano wire instead of conventional ropes. Piano wire selected specifically because it does not break under body weight, but causes slow strangulation instead of rapid neck rupture. Condemned, forced to undress completely before executions, adding final humiliation, led one by one to hall where piano wire is placed around necks and connected to hooks mounted on ceiling. Bodies slowly elevated until feet do not touch ground. Strangulation with piano wire takes between 8 and 12 minutes to cause death, depending on body weight and other physical factors. During this time, prisoners remain conscious, experiencing extreme pain while wire gradually cuts blood circulation and air supply. Entire execution process is filmed by Hitler's direct order, who wants to personally see conspirators' last moments. Filmings are taken to headquarters that same night, projected for Hitler and close associates as sadistic entertainment. August 8th are only beginning of series of proceedings and executions continuing for months. August 10th, second group tried and executed, including Erich Fellgiebel, Berthold von Stauffenberg, Fritz Dietloff von der Schulenburg. Men subjected to identical humiliation procedures and executed using equal methods. Subsequent trials and executions follow same pattern. Each group of accused subjected to public humiliations during rigged proceedings, followed by prolonged executions filmed for Hitler's entertainment. In total, approximately 200 people executed in connection with conspiracy. Authorities implement Sippenhaft doctrine, family responsibility, extending punishment to conspirators' relatives even without direct participation. Wives, children, parents, other relatives are arrested and sent to concentration camps where many die from brutal conditions. Children from conspirators' families receive particularly cruel treatment. Separated from mothers and sent to special orphanages where attempts are made to eliminate family identities and indoctrinate them in Nazi ideology. Many receive new names and are never reunited with surviving members of original families. Extensive documentation of proceedings and executions, including filmings ordered by Hitler, provides after-war detailed evidence of sadistic nature of Nazi judicial system. Filmings capture not only executions but also reactions of German officers who witness, revealing degree of depravity in power structures. Legal archives captured from Volksgerichtshof reveal coordination between judicial apparatus and regime's propagandistic objectives. Documents show verdicts were decided before trials and entire process was designed to create propagandistic material instead of administering justice. Trial transcriptions document extreme language used by Freisler to describe accused. Conspirators consistently denominated as traitors of German blood, moral filth, military scum, other dehumanizing terms designed to justify brutal treatment. Photographs taken at Plötzensee after executions show physical evidence of methods used. Butcher hooks remain stained with blood, piano wire fragments scattered across execution hall floor. Images provide tangible evidence of specific methods employed. Post-war interrogations of officers who participated or witnessed executions reveal additional details about methods and participants' reactions. Some express discomfort with methods employed but acknowledge having followed orders without objection due to fear of being accused of disloyalty. Systematic cruelty deployed against conspirators illustrates degree to which Nazi regime had abandoned any pretense of adhering to civilized legal or moral norms. Proceedings and executions designed specifically to serve as warnings to any German who might consider opposing regime. Stalingrad, the collapse of the trapped army. November 23, 1942. Operation Uranus completely seals encirclement over 330,000 German and Axis soldiers around Stalingrad. Temperatures oscillate between -30 degrees Celsius and -40 degrees Celsius, levels for which troops equipped for summer campaign that supposedly would have ended before winter are not prepared. Friedrich Paulus repeatedly reports to High Command that his forces lack supplies necessary to resist prolonged siege. Food reserves sufficient for barely 1 week of minimal rations, dangerously low ammunition, fuel for vehicles and heating almost non-existent. Hitler prohibits any attempt to break encirclement. Hermann Göring personally promises that airlift will supply 500 daily tons necessary for Sixth Army survival. Promise proves completely unrealistic from beginning. Available Junkers Ju-52 aircraft are inadequate in number and capacity to handle such volume under intense combat conditions. First weeks of siege, airlift manages to deliver average of barely 80 to 100 daily tons, less than fifth of what is necessary. Soviet anti-aircraft artillery and interceptor fighters systematically destroy German transports. By mid-December, deliveries fall to less than 50 tons. Weather conditions dramatically exacerbate Sixth Army suffering. Most troops lack adequate winter clothing, waterproof footwear, survival equipment for extreme climate. Medical reports from last weeks of December document catastrophic physical deterioration. 72% show signs of severe malnutrition with body weight losses exceeding 30%. Early January 1943, official daily ration reduced to 50 to 75 grams of moldy bread and bowl of water soup with potato peels and rancid fat. Even these minimal rations rarely reach front troops due to supply line destruction and corruption among officers controlling distribution. Hungry soldiers seek alternative nutrition sources: boiled leather from belts and boots, dry leaves, tree bark, any edible remains in abandoned buildings. Military horses are killed and consumed completely, including internal organs normally considered unfit for human consumption. Conventional food sources exhausted, some soldiers consider more extreme options. First documented reports of cannibalism appear early January in most isolated perimeter units, where officer supervision is minimal and desperation reaches critical levels. Letter intercepted by Soviet intelligence, signed by Corporal from 384th Regiment, dated January 12, 1943, describes death of companion called Karl. Heinrich said his leg still had useful meat. Nobody protested. Direct testimony of cannibalism normalization within desperate units. NKVD reports describe discovery of human bodies deliberately mutilated for meat extraction. January 18th, Soviet patrol finds remains of German soldiers decapitated with muscles removed from thighs and arms. physical evidence of systematic cannibalism practice. Although cannibalism was never officially sanctioned by the 6th Army Command, it was also not actively prevented in units where officers lost effective control. Practice develops in isolated trenches, abandoned bunkers, advanced positions where small groups act without direct supervision. Captured documents reveal commanders were aware of cannibalism but chose not to report it in official communications. Deliberate omission reflects associated shame and recognition that it was an inevitable consequence of impossible conditions. Parallel to alimentary deterioration, High Command implements extreme disciplinary measures to maintain basic military order. Arthur Schmidt signs orders establishing immediate execution for any soldier guilty of stealing rations, regardless of quantity or circumstances, executions for food theft without formal trials or legal procedures. Accused soldiers shot within hours by improvised squads composed of other hungry soldiers fearing suffering same fate if they disobey. Records suggest more than 300 soldiers executed by comrades during January for food-related crimes. Authorities also implement severe punishments for deliberate self-injuries to avoid combat or qualify for medical evacuation. Self-amputations of fingers, self-inflicted shots to extremities, other forms of self-mutilation become common among troops seeking to escape front conditions. Soldiers guilty of deliberate self-injury face immediate execution under Schmidt's orders. Medical officers receive instructions to report wounds that appear self-inflicted. Suspected soldiers are interrogated under torture to obtain confessions, even accidental wounds treated as suspicious. Summary execution system extends beyond specific crimes to include any behavior interpreted as disloyalty or desertion. Soldiers expressing doubts about war, mentioning surrender possibility, or simply appearing demoralized can face execution if reported by informants. Fear of execution by own officers adds to constant terror of Soviet artillery and enemy patrols, creating an atmosphere of extreme paranoia where soldiers cannot trust anyone. Internal terror atmosphere accelerates collapse of morale and unit cohesion. Approaching siege end, suicide number increases dramatically. Last medical reports, dated end of January, document more than 200 confirmed suicides during last 3 days of organized resistance, self-inflicted shots, hand explosives, hanging. Many suicides committed by officers preferring death to capture by Soviet forces. Karl Strecker, 11th Corps commander, shoots himself in head in his bunker after destroying unit flag and classified documents. Hans Reichel throws himself from 3-story building holding activated grenade. Collective suicides occur among groups that lost all hope. Entire company of 295th Regiment locks itself in basement opening gas valves, dying by collective asphyxiation. Soldiers from the 44th Division group around explosive charges, detonating them voluntarily. Medical conditions during January can be described only as apocalyptic. 44th Division records, only 4 operational doctors for more than 2,000 wounded. Amputations with rusty saws without anesthesia. Universal post-operative infection due to absence of antibiotics and extreme unhygienic conditions. Field hospitals collapsed completely mid-January, wounded deposited in frozen basements where they slowly die from exposure, infection, bleeding. Doctors abandon real treatment, limiting themselves to administering analgesics when available, which is rare. Frostbite so extensive that soldiers lose fingers without realizing until appendages detach. Gas gangrene spreads rapidly, causing spontaneous amputations and death by septicemia. Stench of decomposing flesh fills German positions, combining with odor of corpses that cannot be buried in frozen ground. Soviet interrogations of prisoners captured February 1st to 2nd reveal complete psychological collapse of many units. Soldiers do not remember names, ranks, units of origin. Many believe they are in France or Poland. Others insist German reinforcements will arrive tomorrow. Prisoner from 376th Regiment responds he is Kaiser Wilhelm visiting troops. Another claims to be Bavarian teacher kidnapped by Russian bandits and forced to wear German uniform. Response is not feigned, but genuine manifestations of mental collapse under extreme stress. Captured 6th Army documents reveal many units ceased existing as military organizations weeks before official surrender. Commanders report effective forces of 0 soldiers capable of combat. Ammunition records show units without firing a shot during final days due to lack of ammunition, and soldiers physically incapable of operating weapons. February 2nd, 1943, 6 a.m. Last radio message from the 6th Army. Stalingrad has fallen. Silence begins. After this transmission, all communications cease permanently, marking official end of one of most powerful formations of German army. Surrender is not organized event, but gradual collapse where groups simply stop resisting when Soviet forces arrive. Many soldiers found dead in positions not from combat wounds but from starvation, exposure, diseases. Soviets find trenches filled with frozen corpses dead for weeks. Paulus, promoted to field marshal by Hitler on January 30th with implicit expectation of suicide before surrender, is captured in his command bunker on January 31st. His capture symbolically marks end of organized resistance, although dispersed groups continue fighting or dying for days. Of approximately 330,000 soldiers trapped in Stalingrad cauldron, only 91,000 survived to surrender. Of these prisoners, approximately 60,000 die in Soviet captivity during following months from diseases, continued malnutrition, brutal conditions in prisoner camps.